In today's discussion on entrepreneurs and strategic decisions, there are three objectives that we'll explore. The first is looking at defining entrepreneurial decision making, looking at cognition, and recognizing what makes entrepreneurial decision making different from decisions that are made elsewhere. Decision making is certainly a cognitive process, and by cognition we simply mean thinking. So it's going through and it's evaluating alternatives and considering decision-making criteria and ultimately making that decision and doing it in a strategic format. And we recognize that in that we always have a choice, and even the decision to do nothing is a choice to maintain the status quo. But with entrepreneurship and our entrepreneurial decision making, there is certainly a strong element of unknown factors that come into play. And with those unknown factors, there's a question, well, how do I reduce my uncertainty? If I'm doing something unique, by definition, it's something that is rather unprecedented, and I don't have a lot of others to learn from, or a lot of precedents to examine. So we want to gather information. We can do that in two ways, primary and secondary. Primary is doing it essentially yourself, where you are doing your own research, you're conducting your own interviews, your own surveys, you are going out and speaking with prospective customers and experts in the market and technology experts, and you're learning from them in a first-person, primary, and direct way. A secondary simply means that you're evaluating the research and the data of others. You are going through and reading research reports, you're scouring the internet for data that's been collected, you're reading the assessments and analyses of others. And when you are going through and evaluating strategic decisions, typically you'll do a level of both of these. So in that way you are able to go in and get some initial information in a secondary format and then filling in the gaps with your primary research. You'll also leverage your experience, and with that it may be past experiences that have been related to the industry that you're thinking about entering, the technology or markets that you're going to explore, or the types of customers that you'd want to serve. And with that, typically what I see with entrepreneurs that I work with and students that have success in launching new companies is that they are in some way leveraging something they already know. Perhaps it's something they've studied in school, perhaps it's related to work that they're already doing, but they are not necessarily trying to go out and do something entirely new in an entirely new market for which they have no background in, but they are looking at what do I know, who do I know, how can I bring something unique to the table based on my experiences, and thereby their startups tend to be related to what they've done previously in some fashion. And strategic decisions typically follow a similar path. While every situation is unique, there's certainly the element of a problem well defined as how solved and that you really understand the problem that you're trying to address. Alternatives certainly matter, and what I like to do in a traditional classroom is when we look at problems, I challenge students to develop multiple solutions, 3, 4, perhaps 5 solutions individually. Then we will team and they'll work with others to evaluate the goodness of the various solutions introduced by each, and then they'll come to a collective decision on the best fit solution. And what they've done via that process is they've identified their own alternatives and then evaluated the alternatives of others and have come to a decision that ultimately has been much better developed and enhanced and better suited than the first idea that came to mind. Regrettably, oftentimes we do make decisions in a kind of a split second, and we act on the first idea or the first solution that we have in mind, where in a more strategic way you would go through and develop your alternatives and then make your decisions from there after evaluating those alternatives and recognizing what are your decision-making criteria that differentiate the better alternatives from the less good alternatives. And the evaluation criteria are a central element of that, and that you want to understand and recognize how a success is going to be measured and make sure that you have solutions that are geared towards that. And when we look at what do we mean by entrepreneurial decisions, one question would be if you felt there was an opportunity in the home video rental market, be it for movies in this example, what should you do? What types of technologies make sense? What types of product offering or service offering make sense? What types of pricing make sense? We could look at the home video rental market. We could take a look and see what's happened in the market recently. And in the US, it's really been the demise of Blockbuster and the demise of the video rental outlet where I'm going to a retail store. And for the last several years, as indicated here by the chart, you can see that Netflix has been on a rampant rise as a mail order solution where I can go online, I can pick the films that I'm interested in, and I can have them sent directly to my home. So there's a convenience factor, there's a selection factor, there's also an advantage in lower pricing that Netflix was able to, in a period of years as indicated by the chart, assist, among other factors, in driving Blockbuster out of business. And what we see too is that it's not only Netflix, but there are others such as Redbox. And if you're not familiar with Redbox, Redbox is a vending machine model whereby I go to an individual machine. They're going to have a limited selection. It may be 20, 30, 40 movies, but they are the new releases. They are the most popular films. And it's typically over 90% of rental video revenues come from their new releases. So they've made the strategic decision that we're not going to have a full walk-in retail store. We're not going to do a mail order business, but we are going to have vending machines that are thoughtfully and conveniently located in grocery stores and convenience stores and malls and things of that nature. And you can essentially go and select your rental from the vending machine at that time. And what we've seen that they've been able to secure in recent years, as of 2011, was 37% of the home video rental market share in the US. And thinking about what does that mean for me as an entrepreneur, can I compete with these types of companies? Well, one, I would say that Blockbuster was once upon a time a startup, as was Netflix and Redbox, and they've been able to come along and really decimate a Blockbuster. Redbox has come along since Netflix and has really harmed their business in a significant way as well, as we see indicated here by the chart of them being relatively flat in recent years. So there's a question of, well, what do you do and what's going on next, and really how is Redbox doing what they're doing successfully? Well, they're doing it, one, by having these very convenient locations with the vending machines. They're doing 55 million movies rented monthly on average in the US, with 40 rentals per second is what that works out to. And you may think that a vending machine model is not as convenient as mail order, for example, but what we see with that is 68% as of 2011 of the US population live within 5 minutes of a Redbox kiosk. So in that way, while it may be less convenient than someone mailing something to your door, it's very easy and quick to, on the way home or while you're out shopping, to find a Redbox, to pick up your film, watch it, and return it within a day or so. Well, at the same time, I would not necessarily say replicate what Redbox does, and that the ball is moving for them as well. And they recognize that beyond mail order, there is an on-demand, there's an internet, there's a at-home cable, and there are other streaming solutions that are rapidly emerging. And they are not turning a blind eye to that. And in 2012 in the US, they introduced a partnership with Verizon, whereby they're going through and are evaluating some options, and those options aren't yet known to us, outside of the doors of Redbox and Verizon, of what exactly that means and what they're going to do, but we could guess it's going to be something of a digital partnership that's going to be along the lines of streaming and along the lines of serving up content, and probably broader content than what Redbox has alone, and doing that also with mobile devices as well. So if we go through and if we think about where is the market today and where is it going, and what we can do to play a role in that, you've got to look not only presently at what's going on, not only historically of what's happened, but you have to go through and think about what's going on moving forward and how can you play a role in that, recognizing that your competitors are on the move as well. And so the study of entrepreneurial decision making in that context and by that example does lead to better decisions. Inevitably, there's going to be information we're not going to be able to find, particularly with companies that hold such information secure, or other private companies that we may be competing against. And we don't want to wait till we have all of information, or the window of opportunity may close. There's a level of risk in that, and there are significant consequences of time and money, as we've discussed. But ultimately, we need to make a decision, then the best decision that we can with the information that we can find, recognizing that it's a changing market. And in that way, we want to specify and understand what's the revenue and profit potential of our venture. And we'll talk about financials later in the term, but I think it's important to recognize how are you going to monetize your ideas and how are you going to generate revenue from your concept, rather than it just being a good idea alone. Who's going to pay for it, and how is the revenue model going to work? We also want to think about market share and who are the other competitors in the space, as well as why would they choose your product over others. Is it functionally better? Is there a better brand that can be built? Is there a technical advantage? Is there a price point superiority that you can maintain even with not having the economies of scale that larger competitors may have? And with that, you also want to think about what level of resources and commitment are necessary to bring that venture to bear. So with that, complexity certainly plays a role in entrepreneurial decisions. There are elements that are moving quickly, technologies that are coming and going, and sometimes you have to place your bets on things that are not yet established. There's uncertainty inherent within that and a difficulty in forecasting. There's also the element that you want to be rational and not be overly married to your idea in its initial form. Some degree of flexibility, some degree of adaptation if necessary, and don't necessarily get discouraged or get offended if people suggest alternatives to your initial ideas. There's the element, too, of control that plays a central role as well. And within that, we see that the environment of the entrepreneur is uniquely challenging and uniquely changing. And with this graphic, you may see that this individual is obviously going up a flight of stairs. But when you take a step back and look at the big picture, he's doing anything but that. The individual to the right is walking downward. The individual to the far left is walking downward. The tree on the outside on the right is pointing to the right, and there's an individual sitting on that plane. And when you look around and you see the multiple individuals and the directions that they're going, you're really not sure which way is up and which way is down. And sometimes an entrepreneurial experience is very much like this, and what you think is going on when you look very specifically, when you look at your unique situation and your specific situation as illustrated by the picture on the left, is indeed not the whole reality when you look at the big picture on the right, and you see the many other factors and the many other competitors and the many other forces in the market that are moving. So it's important to try and maintain a big picture mindset. And entrepreneurs are, again, doing new things, and that's part of the unique challenge. You don't have many others to learn from necessarily. They're also working without the relationships that others may have. So you may be starting the venture individually or with a small team, and you need to build those relationships. There's also a level of uncertainty and complexity that is high as well. And so in that way, again, the consequences are significant, and the financial risk is often high. And so in summary, what we want to think about is that opportunity discovery certainly plays a role, and we want to be thoughtful and strategic in how we're evaluating opportunities and what it's going to take for them to materialize and be successful. And that this is a unique endeavor. It's exciting, it's fun, there's a lot of passion and energy involved, and there's an expectation that we're going to act and that we're going to make things happen. And those are all very positive things, but at the same time, I would also be thoughtful and recognize that quick decisions need to be made. They're going to be high stakes, there's going to be incomplete information, but the markets are dynamic, and so we want to be thoughtful and strategically go through and generate alternatives and test those propositions, get the feedback of others that we trust, and have strategic decisions made rather than just simply quick decisions made.